Thank you, Brian, and hello, everyone. It was exactly 2 years ago. I was reviewing Tailwind CSS, and it intrigued me but didn't convince me. I felt it was too verbose. Why would somebody stuff so many CSS classes in their HTML when they could write all that CSS in a style sheet file? And then I remembered it wasn't really that enjoyable doing CSS work. Whenever I or a teammate had to work on a design component, we would end up spending hours fidgeting with CSS properties in the web inspector. We would think about rims and pixels and what margin to give, what padding to give, what was the name of that CSS property. It was a chaos. It was a lot of trial and error, and it was no fun. So when we were building a new product, a colleague recommended that this is the right time to try out Tailwind. We felt he was right. This was a new affiliate plugin that we were building. We had seen all the other affiliate plugins in the market, and we felt they were too complex and difficult to use. We wanted to build an elegant design that was easy to use, and it should feel like a single page application. The design shouldn't feel like a typical WordPress plugin, but a solid, well thought out app. We also wanted to mock it up quickly, iterate over it, and go live as soon as we could. So let me show you what we got. This is the UI we ended up making. As you can see, it's pretty and it's very easy to use. As a matter of fact, this UI and the plugin, of course, quickly became one of the top selling affiliate plugins for WooCommerce. Now, in this discussion, I want to focus on problems and solutions. So when you start using Tailwind CSS yourself, you already know the answers to the real world challenges you will face. Okay, so we won't get into how to install Tailwind or answer questions that you could easily find answers on Google. I'm going to share our experience and what we learned from that. But let's get started with some basics of Tailwind. So this is a Tailwind page that I've created for you. And if you look at the HTML elements within that, you will notice that each element has a bunch of classes, CSS classes on it. And these classes are actually giving some property. Essentially what's happening is that you have stacked a series of classes on each element, and each class is giving one or two properties, CSS properties, to that element. But when you combine them together, that is the final result that you want. Let's look at this H1, the interesting examples. So if I remove the existing classes and just press enter, this is what happens. It loses its style. What Tailwind does is that rather than resetting the browser CSS, which we have seen using normalized CSS, etc., it actually removes all the default styling for all elements in the page. Which means if you do not add any Tailwind classes, you will not have any formatting. And when you want to add formatting, you simply type in the classes like this. For example, this is what we started with. But if you wanted to give it some more styling, for example, if you wanted to give it a border, and if you're giving it a border, you might as well give it some padding and maybe a background color. But let's make it rounded. We like rounded corners better. Do you want to give it a shadow? I don't think so, but let's just see. And that's how it starts looking. As you could see, adding all these classes quickly changed the look of that text on the page. And that's how Tailwind works. This is your quick intro to Tailwind. Let's go back. So we saw that this was the UI that we built, and what I figured out and what I experienced was that I was no longer fiddling with CSS in the inspector. I was actually writing all my classes in my code editor itself, and then going to the web inspector and then tweaking a few things here and there. It was no more kind of thinking about what property to use and what not to use. All the everyday properties like padding, margin, borders, shadows, colors, all that was very easy to remember. It wasn't really hard. So things became a lot more predictable. Things became a lot easier to actually deal with in the code editor itself. The other thing about Tailwind is that it's very well documented. So if you don't find something that you're looking for, just go to Tailwind CSS site and you will get that answer right there. Unlike other frameworks like Bootstrap, Tailwind does not come with some components of its own. So for example, there is no button component or no card component. If you want to do something like that, you have to compose and build your own. But there is a site called tailwindui.com. It's a paid product from the same folks who make Tailwind. And there they have lots of interesting examples of ready components, ready pages, a whole bunch of things. And when we subscribe to that, making UIs became a lot more easy for us because we could just kind of copy paste the best practices that they were following. One last thing on this. So when we built this actually, so when we moved to production, we didn't want to actually use React because it was hard and the team that was working on the product didn't know React already. And we discovered a library called Mithril.js. Now Mithril is a modern client-side JS framework, which is very small. It's like 10 KB, very fast, and it has routing, Ajax, all that built in. So it became a very good replacement of React for us. And we combined Mithril and Tailwind to create this UI and a lot other UIs in the future. So that was the affiliate product. Then we wanted to build another product, and this product is called Offermative. Offermative is a solution to grow revenue for WooCommerce stores. And the way it does that is by using artificial intelligence and stats to create ready to publish sales funnel campaigns for you. And that includes the copywriting, the design, the display rules, everything is automatically generated for you. Now, when we started thinking about Offermative, we knew that we could use Tailwind to build the backend UI. We had already done that for affiliates. But we wondered if we could use Tailwind to design the front end, especially the offer designs, all the upsells, cross-sells, order bumps, product recommendations that we wanted to do. But we had a challenge here. The real challenge was that our styling must not disturb the styling of the theme or any plugins that the person was using. Neither the theme or the plugin styling should interfere in what we wanted to show, not even a pixel. To illustrate with a trivial example, imagine that the theme that you're using gives a 2 EM margin to each paragraph. But we wanted to give 1 EM margin to our paragraphs when it was within the Offermative kind of offer. We wanted to be able to do that without any spillover. So our CSS doesn't conflict or spoil the site CSS. The site CSS cannot enter into the Offermative territory. That is what we wanted to do. So, and we wanted to do that because CSS overlaps is a real problem. We had seen it in some of our other products, and we didn't want any hassles of writing compatibility code. Can you think of a solution for this problem? Let's see what we came up with. Okay, so these are the Offermative designs that we built. We had action bars like this, pop-ups, multiple pop-ups, and then we had full screen overlays. We even had messenger kind of designs like this, and all of this was responsive. So depending on the screen size, the elements would change position, show or hide things, etc. And we had a number of offer designs like this. Now let me quickly show you how you can build responsiveness with Tailwind and then continue. Let's go back to our earlier page. Now if I look at this page, it's looking nice in this screen size, but if I go and change the screen size to tiny, it's actually scaling down. Now that's something that you will experience as the first problem when you start working with responsive designs. And what you'll need to do is you need to add this meta. Okay, so you need to just add this viewport meta into your code, and when you do that, your UI will actually scale properly. Now as you can see here, what's happening is that we have two items. We have one OL and one image. We have an order list and an image, and both are placed side by side. But that's not really looking nice on a smaller screen. What we should probably do is that put them one after the other on smaller screen, and when the screen is bigger, we can actually expand. So let's just go ahead and do that. Now as you can see, we have this flex class here, which basically places them next to each other. And I can say only when the screen size is medium and above, use flex, and that's when I will need the space X, which is space on the X-axis, which is the horizontal space. Otherwise, by default, I want to just place them next one after the other, which is the default behavior, and that is something that I can do with space Y8. So like 2 units of spacing. But when I go into the medium and above, when I'm going to place these items side by side, just set that to 0. So as you could see, what we did was we added these prefixes, MD for medium, which is a 768px media size. And that is how Tailwind deals with responsiveness, that everything starts with a tiny screen. So your default classes will apply to smaller screen and then above. If you wanted to override something, you would use these prefixes. Tailwind also has prefixes for your pseudo elements like hover, etc. Now if we did that, let's just go back to the screen and refresh, and as you can see, our screen is now responsive. So that is where it goes, and when we go up higher, it's side by side. So you just learned how to do responsive designs with Tailwind. Now let me show you the affirmative dashboard. So here we have the dashboard, and we show some campaigns, but then we also allow people to generate new campaigns. These campaigns are generated by the system, and everything including the copy SRL, like I mentioned, is automatically generated. And as you can see, these designs are showing up within WordPress admin and on the front end also, and we wanted to make sure that they look good irrespective of the style sheet that is also loaded on this page, other style sheet apart from the style sheet that we are loading. And let me show you how we solve that problem. Essentially what came to our rescue was the resets that Tailwind was doing. I told you that Tailwind resets everything and removes all the styles. So what we did was we just wrapped all the Tailwind styles within our affirmative class. So if we added affirmative as a class on the container, then only it'll reset everything under it, and then we could apply our custom styles to it. What this meant was that we really got a sandbox for us. So the theme styles wouldn't come in here because we are resetting everything, and our styles wouldn't go out because we have a affirmative prefix class. It's basically not a prefix, but it's a specificity in CSS. So we have higher specificity, and that's why our styles will apply on our containers. We just had to do a little bit of hack because some of these resets were not working. But this is how we did the sandboxing problem solution, and you may find it useful for yourself. All right. So we just saw that we built this kind of complex UI also with elegance. And by elegance, I don't just mean visual beauty. the way we could use Tailwind CSS itself, it was very productive and it just felt nice. We could do the sandboxing. We had to deal with some WordPress quirks. For example, if we wanted to use select to within WooCommerce, within our Tailwind UI, we had to do some additional CSS, etc. But it was a lot of fun building UIs with Tailwind. So we said, what else we can do? And by this time, Tailwind had become like a silver bullet for me, like a new hammer that a kid has discovered. So every problem that I found, I thought of that as an opportunity to use Tailwind. And we were thinking about doing new designs for our coupons plugin, Smart Coupons. It's the most popular coupons plugin out there, and tens of thousands of people are using it, which is also what made it risky. If we did something that would create a problem, we had a bigger issue. So we wanted to create attractive coupon designs, but we also wanted to allow people to customize them a bit. Okay, so let me show you what we did quickly. Let's go back from here and go to the designs. So this is the kind of designs that we built, and each of them basically could be customized by users. They could simply change the colors. We had some fancy image work also done in there. And what I want to demonstrate here is that doing CSS with Tailwind, we actually learned many new things. For example, using CSS properties, and that's what we are using for changing these color schemes. So we have these props, and then we use those props into the coupon designs. We also use a lot of SVGs. For example, this blob that you see here, it's an SVG with a color that is filled in at runtime, and then we show the text on top of it. Even these elements, they are all SVGs. And SVGs are great. They are scalable, obviously. And using inline SVGs or just kind of using SVGs for design was great help, because in this particular case, we were converting designs done in Illustrator to HTML, and using SVGs just made it so super easy. So like I mentioned, going from design to code was enjoyable. We could do a lot of experimentation easily, and we could learn along as we were using Tailwind. We could kind of use CSS props, but we could also learn some advanced CSS by just poking into how Tailwind was implementing their own classes. Another thing that we did here was we used purging of CSS with Tailwind, and let me just quickly demonstrate that to you. So let me go to the coupon designs, and that's my list. And as you can see, okay, just let's say human readable. So the tailwind.css file is actually 4.5 MB. Tailwind CSS file is pretty huge. It can get even bigger than this depending upon how you configure it, but you don't really want to load this on your production environment. So what you do is you actually purge all the unused CSS. This is a very old configuration we did, but what we have done here is that, okay, you go to purge all the unused CSS. So Tailwind may have 10,000 classes, but our file, our code uses only 15 classes. So remove everything else, just keep those 15 classes. And then we also kind of minified the CSS, which essentially resulted in 9.3 KB of file. And the way we did that was with a package command. So whenever we ran npm run prod, it would actually look at the coupon designs that we made, look at the Tailwind configuration, and generate the minimal CSS file. As you can see, from the 4.5 MB file, it has reduced it to just a 9.3 KB file. And the end result was that when we launched it, it was a super success. We got more customers. Existing customers were very happy with what we had done, and this design was a super hit. But we learned something new here. We could actually remove unused CSS. And unused CSS is a big problem for everybody's website. We'd already seen these benefits of kind of using CSS Nano and Pert CSS. So we said, can we do that on our site? And our site design was also already kind of 2 years old. It was due for a revamp. We said, can we use Tailwind for all the landing pages? Can we get some advantages with that? So we did. We designed our sites with Tailwind, but we had one problem to solve here. The theme was loading its own JavaScript and CSS files, and we didn't need them on the pages that were using Tailwind. So what we did was we created a new page template, and anytime a page was using that template, our custom code would remove all the enqueued JavaScript and CSS except the ones that we wanted. So in the end, what we had was only the Tailwind CSS and extra JavaScript code that we wanted for that page. That significantly reduced site load time, but it also had surprising impact on SEO. Because Tailwind reset all the styling, we could now use semantic HTML and keep the aesthetics separate. So we could have an H1 heading, but that would be smaller than an H2 that we had coming next, and H2 would actually be the headline for the customer. So we could do technical SEO with Tailwind because the semantics and the aesthetics were different. Obviously the speed was higher, and with all these benefits we said, okay, what else can we do? What is remaining? And we came to the blog. Now the problem with the blog was again the resets. We already saw that Tailwind resets all the CSS that may be there on the page. Let me just show you an example. So because Tailwind resets it, what if you wanted to style your H1s, H2s, etc., etc.? So they came up with a solution for that, and that's called Tailwind Pros. So what Tailwind Pros does is that it applies default formatting to elements, HTML elements, without you needing to explicitly add Tailwind's classes inline. So if let me just give you an example here. So if I have this article which has the pros classes added, if I remove them, this is how it's going to show up, because Tailwind is basically just resetting everything. And the moment I add these pros classes, then it's going to be formatted well. So we used pros, but then we wanted to do a lot of customizations. For example, we wanted to use this kind of headings. We wanted to add our own components to it, and we wanted to do some more fancy formatting, etc. How do we do that? We can now do our own CSS. So look at this style sheet. It's not the normal style sheet. It gets expanded with post CSS, but look at this statement. It says in H1, I want to apply serif font and all these other properties. Now, if you noticed, these are all the Tailwind classes, and we are applying these Tailwind classes to this particular element. What this allows us to do is override whatever formatting pros had given. So we did a lot of overriding like that, but we also added our own classes. For example, this particular notify thing that we have, it allows us to have decorative boxes on the page, and you had notify, and then within that you had a heading, etc. This is how you format it. Let me show you that example once again. So let's look at this one. So as you can see, this is a notify class, and we have a bunch of other classes working here, and we are saying, okay, this is a notify class, but if you remove the pulled right, it goes all flat horizontal. If I remove that CTA thing, then it gets another formatting. If I remove this tall, it doesn't affect it right now because I don't have two elements in it. But then if I say this is a success, it gets a different styling. If I say, okay, add an icon of alert, it gets added as an icon. And then if I say, okay, turn it back into a CTA, but because I want to show it like a tall element, do that, and then go pull it on the left, and then this is how it'll start showing. I don't like it on the left, so I'll go back to right. If you see, what we are now doing is like using Tailwind kind of CSS semantics on our own classes. For example, this is a link, but if I want to turn it into a button, I'll simply call it a button and it'll look like a button. Obviously, it doesn't look good like this. So if I remove it from here, this will start looking a little better. So earlier we were applying Tailwind classes on our HTML. Now we are no longer applying Tailwind classes. We are just using semantic HTML without any additional Tailwind classes. But we are applying our own classes and then we are stacking them as we needed to create some beautiful UI elements. And that is something that we showed to our content team, our marketing team, and they were thrilled. They found this whole idea of stacking very kind of intuitive, and they were able to kind of learn the new pattern very quickly. So in the end, pros became very useful to us. We could do a whole lot of customizations by just using @applies. Semantic HTML worked, and then we had a whole style guide that helped our team know what kind of formatting they should do and what they shouldn't do. Eventually, we started taking Tailwind everywhere. We took it to emails. We kind of designed our newsletters with Tailwind. We created email templates with it, onboarding our apps, billing lead documentation, everything was Tailwind. Our biggest advantage with Tailwind was that developers started enjoying design. We not only developed better user interfaces, but we loved the process itself. And since Tailwind has such a powerful toolkit, everyone loved learning something new whenever they tried Tailwind. So somebody learned Node with it, or Post CSS, or Perth CSS, or even, like I said, learning advanced CSS just by poking into Tailwind itself. So all the developers really enjoyed it. It was really a great developer experience. On top of it, Tailwind proved very versatile for us. As you've already seen, we have used Tailwind on a number of different kind of projects. One disadvantage of any design framework that gets popular is that you will see similar sites a lot more often. So just as it is easy to spot a Bootstrap powered website, it's equally easy to spot a Tailwind powered site now these days. But because Tailwind has such powerful customization capability, what I recommend you do is tweak it, personalize it, give it your own style. That way you will have a unique yet consistent design system for yourself. Now, I have really enjoyed learning and working with Tailwind, and we have seen significant impact on the businesses due to improved designs as well. And I wish you experience similar results as well. I want to thank you for tuning in. I know it takes commitment and effort to participate in a self-growth activity like this, and I acknowledge you for your learning and for your curiosity. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but most importantly, enjoy the ride.